Okay, good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Alexandra Campbell. I'm the Executive Director of the Reston Historic Trust and Museum. The museum is located at Lake Ann Plaza, and our mission is to preserve the past, inform the present, and influence the future of Reston through programs such as this one. Tonight, we will be exploring the 45-plus year history of Tephra Institute of Contemporary Art, formerly Greater Reston Arts Center, also known as GRACE. The Reston Museum will be discussing the early history of the organization using archival artifacts from our collection, and then we'll be turning the presentation over to Tephra to talk about what they are doing today and where they are headed next. So let's get started. I do want to make a note that we will be recording tonight's presentation, and if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll be taking questions at the end. And I want to thank Tephra for collaborating with us on this program tonight, and also thank Reston Community Center, who supports our programs and has made tonight's presentation possible. We're going to start when Reston began back in the early 1960s. Founder Robert E. Simon Jr. and his team of planners prioritized the arts. Reston's founding principles include that Reston would offer a wide variety of cultural activities and that beauty, both structural and natural, would be fostered. When creating a promotional package for the first Village Center in 1962, Simon and his team imagined how art could be incorporated into that first Village Center. And on the screen here, you have a conceptual drawing of Lake Ann, and you can see here in the window is a sign for an art exhibit. So they were planning something from the very beginning. And while an art exhibit didn't go into that location at Lake Ann, an art gallery was created. The gallery instead opened up on the first floor of Heron House, which is the high-rise at Lake Ann Plaza, and it was called the Heron House Gallery. You can see here, this is what the Heron House Gallery exterior view looked like. The gallery at Heron House was operated by Brenda and Curry Belfield, along with Norma and Rebecca Krasniger. The four of them are featured here on the slide on the left. And as you can see in this Reston Times article, the gallery was sometimes referred to as the Reston Gallery or simply the gallery. Brenda, Curry, Norman, and Rebecca all envisioned creating a more formal arts organization. They brought members of the community together, including Embry Brecker, with the idea to create a more formal organization, a nonprofit that would have an exhibit space and offer educational programs. Brecker proposed utilizing church land for a combined church and arts center, which would be called the Greater Reston Arts Center. Although this early church connection inspired their acronym GRACE, the idea of the combined church and art space was ultimately not pursued. On the left here is a Reston Times article that features Brenda Belfield. She's on the far left. This article discussed her paintings were on exhibit at the Anne Hathaway Gallery of the Folger Shakespeare Library. And on the right, we have a photograph of Embry Brecker by Arville Daniels. GRACE officially formed on December 26, 1973, and a few months later, they were approved for nonprofit status. The organization would move into the gallery space on the ground floor of Heron House in 1974. And here you can see the entrance to GRACE when it was at Lake Ann Plaza. Their first exhibit opened up in November 1974. It showcased the work of Bauhaus-trained Werner Droz, a well-known founder of the American Abstracts Artist Group, who had settled in Reston in 1972. The gallery featured two major rooms for artwork, and a third room was utilized as a gift shop, and this is demonstrated in this ad for GRACE. In 1975, Brenda Belfield stepped down as director and artist Judy Forst assumed the role. She would lead the organization twice from 1975 to 1980 and again from 1990 to 1995. This 1976 article on the left discusses the expansion of programs, stating Grace was aiming to become the center of community art activities. To achieve this goal, they sought art professionals to teach programs in watercolor, painting, pottery, and more. These workshops were held at the gallery and over the years would also be held at Reston Community Center and even artists' homes. In 1976, Grace would launch their Arts in the School program. Volunteer docents traveled from school to school, delivering programs on art history and art appreciation. During this time, Grace would also host lectures, field trips, and programs. Here on the slide here, we have a group of volunteer docents. In 1975, Grace launched their membership campaign, urging artists and art enthusiasts to join their membership ranks. A little over 10 years later, Grace would have 50 members. Membership benefits included class and trip discounts, invitation to exhibit openings, and price reductions on items in the gift shop. Today's membership has increased to include other benefits as well. Here on the slide is a newsletter from 1977. It discusses the membership drive, what spring classes and events were being held, and thanks volunteers. In the 1980s, rent at Heron House increased to the point that Grace was concerned that they would not be able to stay at Heron House. Under the new leadership of Executive Director Ann Thomas, 30 of Grace's members pooled together donations to make a $30,000 down payment on the property to go towards purchasing the space. Known as Friends of Grace, this group then leased the property back to Grace at a very low cost. In the 1980s, requests for school programs would grow by 150%. Classroom presentations focused on addressing important artists, periods, or styles. Presentations were followed by hands-on art projects. And by 2013, 42 schools in Northern Virginia and Washington, D.C. would utilize Grace's art program. For their 20th anniversary, a selection from Reston collections were exhibited in an exhibit titled 20th Century Art from Reston Collections. It featured over 60 works of art from 17 Restonians. The show was considered to have a wide range of media, artists, and styles represented. Here on the slide, we have a connection article that discusses the show, and on the left is an image from another publication that actually shows the exhibit. The 1980s became a time when Grace considered expanding beyond their Lake Ann location. In November 1985, Sunset Hills Land Corporation surprised Grace with a gift of 2 warehouses formerly used by the Bowman Distillery, located off of Old Reston Avenue. While one building was declared structurally unsound and later demolished, the other, featured on the slide, was seen as an opportunity. Grace focused their efforts on raising funds to transform the warehouse into an arts center, and they hope to begin renovations by 1989. Over the years, Grace's events have included auctions, crab festivals, picnics, craft shows, galas, and design contests. For example, Grace coordinated the Volksmarch Design Contest of 1985. Featured here is the winning medal. And the theme for that year was Reston, a new town with old trees. And so you can see that depicted very well with this design. While Grace weighed options for the Bowman building in the late 1980s, several changes occurred at the Lake Ann location. In 1987, Friends of Grace, which had been leasing the Lake Ann property, disbanded and sold the Heron House space. Grace then made the decision to move their headquarters to a building off of Reston Avenue. They commemorated their departure from Lake Anne with the exhibit called The Last Picture Show. While on Reston Avenue, they still continued to create exhibits. They created some exhibits for USGS and hosted exhibits in the Fairfax County office buildings. They also continued to expand programming, creating programs for preschoolers and collaborating with an art exchange with the National Chinese Children's Center in Beijing in 1986. Grace would ultimately decide not to pursue the Bowman Gallery as it was too expensive to renovate. Donors agreed that the funds could be allocated toward a different future location. Grace then began thinking about creating a space at Reston Town Center. In January 1991, Grace would move from Reston Avenue into the new Reston Town Center. Their new home was in the Fountain Square building on Freedom Drive. The 1962 Reston Master Plan originally called for the town center to have a museum and many diverse forms of community space. Grace's new location was a definitive step in achieving that early Reston goal. Here on the slide, you can see this is an early photograph of Reston Town Center, partially under construction. And on the left here, this is what their gallery space at the Fountain Square location looked like. There's a gallery tour going on. Their new location at the town center ended up being a perfect place for Grace to start a new annual event. In 1992, Grace launched the first Reston Fine Arts Festival. Approximately 1,000 attended. A year later, the festival would be renamed the Northern Virginia Fine Arts Festival and include a more regional approach. By 1994, the festival had extended to 2 days, and by 1998, attendance was reported to be at 70,000. It has been ranked one of the top outdoor arts festivals on the East Coast. While short-lived, a gallery called Grace 2 opened up at Tall Oaks Village Center in 1994 and was primarily focused on educational programs. Other exhibits spaces included a partnership with the Hyatt Regency Hotel Restaurant, which began in the 1990s and lasted until 2012, where they hosted seasonal exhibits of work of local artists. In the late 1990s, Anne Brown would lead the organization as executive director. And in 1999, Grace would establish an annual scholarship program for local high school students. In 1999, Grace would sell the Bowman Distillery property and move to its current location in 2005, which significantly increased their square footage. They premiered the space on June 10th, 2005, with the opening of the exhibit Imprint Art and Artists of a New Town, showcasing 13 local artists. Here on the slide, you can see on the right is the exterior view of the gallery, and on the left is a promotional piece about their opening exhibit. In 2014, Grace celebrated 40 years with the exhibit 40 for 40. Along with this exhibit, they created a book on their history and the exhibit, which has been significantly referenced for tonight's program. The exhibit captured the organization's acknowledgement that they had successfully established a regional arts presence, and they wanted to celebrate their continued expanded programs. The 40 for 40 show featured a selection of 40 artists who had exhibited at Grace or had been closely involved with the organization, included a few who had founded Grace. Contemporary art with all of its variety was on display. And here on the slide, you can see these are two images of the exhibit. In 2014, Holly Coons assumed the dual role of executive director and curator. I'm going to give a brief overview on exhibits, partnerships, and awards Grace has won over the years. Since its founding, Grace has hosted over 300 exhibitions, and to name a few, not only the ones that we've already discussed, but also an exhibit called Past is Prologue, Divining Nature and Elemental Garden, and Glass of Brilliant Art. Grace has collaborated with many organizations over the years. In 2007, Grace, along with several other organizations, assisted in the creation of a new organization, Public Art Reston. As a contribution to assist Public Art Reston's beginnings, they provided office space for the first director. They have collaborated ever since on numerous art projects. In 2009, Grace established a partnership with Reston Community Center, which assists in funding educational programs and securing entertainment at the Northern Virginia Fine Arts Festival. Grace has won many awards over the years, including Reston Community Association's Community Service Award in 1986. An article about them receiving this award is on the screen. In 2014, they received the Arts Impact Award from the Arts Council of Fairfax, and that middle top image is them receiving that award. And in 2017, they were awarded the 50 for 50 Inspiration Award from the Virginia Commission for the Arts, also pictured here on the bottom right. In 2000, they were also awarded the Best of Reston Award. Over its 47-year history, it's clear Grace has not only impacted Reston, but beyond. They have maintained their original vision to operate a gallery and offer educational programs, and have expanded significantly over the years to host a variety of events and programs, provide scholarships, and be a champion of contemporary art. With that, we conclude the early history portion of tonight's program, and we'll now turn the program over to Tephra to discuss some key moments from the last 5 years that have brought the organization where it is today and their plans for the future. So I'm just going to briefly introduce our speakers. We're very lucky tonight to have Robert Gowdy and Janelle Hazard with us tonight. Robert Gowdy is the board chair of Tephra Institute of Contemporary Art. He has been a member of the organization's board of directors for 9 years, and the last 7 as its chair. During this time, the organization has restored its financial health, added depth to the board of directors, has grown its full-time staff, and pivoted to a new vision centered on its exhibit content. Gowdy is proud of the organization, has added nationally and internationally acclaimed artists and interdisciplinary experiences to what has always been the institution's primary focus, showcasing the best local and regional artists. In 2019, he was appointed by the governor as commissioner for the 11th Congressional District on the Virginia Commission of the Arts, and he is both a founding and current member of the board of directors for Public Art Reston. A practicing attorney for much of his professional career, Robert has been the executive director of Reston Town Center Association since 2015. Janelle Hazard is the executive director and curator of Tephra Institute of Contemporary Art. Prior to joining Tephra, Hazard was the director of exhibitions at Workhouse Arts Center, and in previous roles, she supported various art programs and worked with some of the most celebrated artworks through her experience supporting the corporate contemporary art collection at UBS, the Union Bank of Switzerland, and via her work at Blank Projects, a contemporary art gallery in Cape Town, South Africa. She earned her Master's of Arts degree at Sotheby's Institute of Art, and she currently serves as the co-chair for the Washington chapter of Sotheby's Institute of Art alumni. And without further ado, I will turn this over to Tephra. So just give me one moment and I will stop sharing my screen. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much, Alexandra.
Thank you.
That was pretty great. I don't know if others like me were getting goosebumps looking at some of that archival material. That was pretty awesome. What a great story. You can't do what we're talking about doing now with Tephra ICA unless you've got an incredible foundation to build upon. And I think you can all appreciate from seeing those slides that there's been a very, very firm, sturdy foundation built by so many people on this call and others in putting together first Greater Reston Arts Center and what is now Tephra Institute of Contemporary Art. And so we're going to talk a little bit tonight, Janelle and I, about how we're making this transition from Grace to Tephra. So with that, you all kind of know who we are. Alexandra's really gone through this, founded in '74, serving over about 80,000 people annually with our multiple experiences through exhibitions, our education programs, and our Northern Virginia Fine Arts Festival. We are, of course, a 501c3 nonprofit. And we now have 2 gallery spaces, which is really nice. 3 or 4 years ago now, we added a satellite space up at the Signature Apartments in Reston Town Center. And what's been really neat about that is at this moment when we're really kind of pivoted to showing nationally and internationally recognized people in our main gallery, we've been able to dedicate the Signature Gallery space to the very best local and regional artists staying connected with our roots and how Grace was founded. So you've heard about this great foundation. Why on earth would you even think about changing this? It's already, it ain't broke, it's doing great. But over the last decade, a lot has changed for us. We've really expanded our presence regionally and nationally. I mean, Grace was really founded essentially as a local art institution all those 47 years ago. We've really committed to investing in our artists, consistent with the new wage scale that's been promoted nationally, to try to make sure that we're investing in the arts and our people that are making the content. We've exhibited artists of national and international reputation. This really was an institution, as Alexandra referenced, was founded by Reston artists for Reston artists, so that has really changed. And our real focus now is on becoming a compelling cultural destination on the Silver Line, which we hope is going to open soon. It looks like now 2022, sadly. But in summary, if you think about all of those things, that's a very different kind of set of animating principles for who we are as an organization today from where we were when we were founded back in 1973. So what does that change and that pivot look like? Well, it's all about our content. So I'm going to show you some slides here about how that content has really fundamentally morphed and evolved, especially over this last decade. And it really started with this amazing community project, Patrick Doherty's sculpture, Bird in the Hand. It was an unprecedented community undertaking at the time. You can see the list of phenomenal community partners we had here. It was presented in partnership with our great colleague, Public Art Reston. We obtained at that time the largest single corporate sponsorship we had ever received in Grace's history from the Willisford Foundation out in Virginia, $30,000. This project also got a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts, in addition to Arts Fairfax. It was strongly supported by our indispensable partners, Reston Town Center Association and Reston Community Center, as well as Reston Association, Red Thinking, Storycatcher, and Hyatt Regency, all coming together to make this happen, in addition to dozens of volunteers who not only went out and actually cut with Patrick the saplings at Willisford, but put the art together under Patrick's guidance right there on Town Square Park. It was an amazing project. Next was Sushea Wong, which was in the fall of 2016, curated by our fantastic then curator and executive director, Holly Coons, who has now gone on to become the executive director and curator at the Christopher Newport University new art center that was just built. This exhibition, Synthetic Transformations, was from a Taiwanese national who is now based in New York City, a really kind of signature moment for us in bringing in national people. This was Sushea was a person who had already given a TED Talk. He's a person who was a former Smithsonian Artist Research Fellow. His art was at the intersection of kind of technology and art, as you can see here. And it was the most attended exhibition in the history of the institution, by far, generously sponsored by Leidos. At that time, the largest in-house, in-gallery sponsorship we had ever received, $10,000. Next slide is going to take us, I think, to Radcliffe Bailey and the Great Dismal Swamp. Radcliffe is an internationally installed artist, also curated by Holly Coons. Someone who was, this was the first time that he had been installed locally in a solo exhibition. He had done group exhibitions in the area. It was a phenomenal exhibition on the Great Dismal Swamp, which some of you know is at on the border between North Carolina and Virginia and operated as a way station for the Underground Railroad. And Radcliffe Bailey had family actually go through the Great Dismal Swamp on their march to freedom coming out of the South. And he had always wanted to do an exhibition about that show, did it at Grace. It was an exhibition that got national and local, important regional attention. It was also the first exhibition where we put together our new interdisciplinary content that would augment our exhibitions. As you can see on the next slide, I hope, yeah, this is a list of some of our most recent public programming. And if you can look at just some of the people that are presented there, you get an idea of the kind of impact that we're having and the talent that we're able to draw now to what was Grace and now is Tephra. I'm thinking about, if I just go back one more for a second, Janelle, I just want to talk about, for example, to give you an idea of the great programming, Callie Hawkins, who was with President Lincoln's Cottage downtown. It's an amazing show. She came out to talk about how Lincoln and everything that Lincoln did for emancipation, that work is continuing today. And so she talked about that and what's going on at Lincoln's College to further that scholarship in connection with our exhibition. She came out and did the lecture at Grace, at the gallery. Amazing, and that's typical of this kind of interdisciplinary content that we're offering at Grace, thanks to an important sponsorship by Reston Community Center. Thank you very much. But you can see Shannon Parrish with the Smithsonian, Vanessa Schulman from George Mason University, Lisa Page with George Washington, on and on. On the next slide, you'll see some more of these fantastic people that we've had here. Molly Warnock, an assistant professor at Johns Hopkins, Klaus Outman at the Phillips, Kristen Heilman, an independent curator, just an amazing group of people. Abby Wendell, producer of NPR's Invisibilia, did a fantastic show talking about climate change, which tied into one of the pieces that was part of a group exhibition that we did with our Mary Howard member show. So it's been a really diverse group. We've had jazz critics from Slate. We've had professors, the chair of the philosophy department and George Mason presented in connection with our Suburbican exhibition in 2017. It's just been an amazingly rich and diverse group of people that have really widened our horizons. A message to Paulina was the Paulina Pv Exhibition that our fantastic then curator and executive director Lily Siegel curated. Paulina was a nationally established artist, deceased at the time, that we showed her. It was an exhibition that got a multi-page spread in the Washington Post, which is kind of emblematic of how our content has changed and the kind of attention it's now getting outside of Reston. This was a great show. Next slide. Figure Studies by Mike Cloud, another show that Lily curated. Mike is a nationally renowned artist speaking to issues of social and cultural equity. He was a professor at the NYU at the time. He's now moved on to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. A fantastic exhibition that also got important regional attention for us. Next slide. This was kind of a signature moment in Grace's evolution. So this is based on our Green is the Secret Color of Gold exhibition by Caitlyn Thiel Price, who's a DC-based artist who showed at Grace at that time. And Lily Siegel arranged for us to moderate a discussion between Caitlyn and John Pilson, who was then the director of graduate studies at the Yale University School of Art. And this talk is taking place at the National Gallery of Art, the East Wing Auditorium downtown, in the auditorium right underneath the Calders and the Jackson Pollocks right upstairs on the next floor. And there's Grace. And that is our exhibition up on that football field-sized screen that is in the East Wing Auditorium. You can see down in the lower right-hand of the image, lower right-hand corner of the image, that's actually the head of Michael Kelly. And sitting next to Michael is Joan Kelly, who was sitting next to me. Many on this call, of course, know Joan. She was instrumental with Susie Joan and others in founding the Grace Art Program and Grace Art in the Schools. He's been associated with Grace for 40 years. And I leaned over to Joan at about this time in the presentation. And I said, Joan, I mean, you're looking at this, you're seeing our executive director, curator, moderating this incredible discussion at the East Wing Auditorium, our exhibition up there on this screen. Did you ever think you would see this day? And literally Joan turned to me with tears in her eyes and said, absolutely not. And that was all she could say. It was an emotional moment. It was an amazing experience to be down there at the National Gallery of Art. Next slide. This was our just concluded exhibition, the Moira Dreier exhibition, which was unprecedented for us. It was done in partnership with the Phillips Collection downtown. We showed Moira Dreier Yours for the Asking at our space in Reston Town Center, which was a collection of principally privately held works, many of which had never been seen in public before. They were art that Moira had gifted to family, friends, and others. And then the Phillips did her more nationally known, internationally known, publicly known works in their exhibition back in business. It was an amazing symbiosis between the two exhibitions, fantastic. And on the next page, you can see the national attention that this exhibition got. It was reviewed in the prestigious New York Review of Books by Barry Schwabsky, and a phenomenal review. It had a multi-page spread in the Washington Post, which is the piece that you can see in the middle. And then, unprecedented for us, Grace was reviewed in Art Forum, one of the leading national publications in our sector in the arts industry. Next slide. This is our new sculpture, which has taken the place of Patrick Doherty's Bird in the Hand in Town Square Park, Sue Werbicken's Buoyant Force. It's a 50-foot steel surrealist sculpture. I know it makes a lot of people's heads explode when they see it. That's part of what we wanted to do. It's provocative, it's awesome, it's challenging, it's inspiring. People love it, people hate it, all of the above. It's fantastic. It was done with another kind of, I don't want to say unprecedented because we did something similar to this with Doherty, but a phenomenal community partnership. RCC, Reston Community Center, and Reston Town Center Association could not have done it without the two of them and their financial contributions. And then Whiting Turner, who donated all of their time and wherewithal to get the sculpture loaded onto a truck. It was constructed in Rockville, Maryland, ship it down here with a crane, put it up, build it, secure it. Amazing contributions. Commercial Concrete, pro bono, contributed the concrete platform that it sits on. McMullen did all of the design and engineering work. ECS did some of the independent assessment work so we could get county approval. Architecture Inc. did all of the architecture work and got our permits through the county. Paint Deck did the painting. Arts Fairfax gave us a grant, and Public Art Reston gave us a grant. Just a phenomenal project. Sad news is we haven't been able to have an opening ceremony, if you will, for it yet because of the pandemic. So hopefully this fall, 2021, maybe in conjunction with our Fine Arts Festival that has been rescheduled from its typical weekend, the third weekend in May, to the weekend of September 10th to 12th this fall. So hopefully that festival will happen, and hopefully we'll be able to do some kind of celebration of Sue's amazing sculpture here, which really taps into a big part of what we do, our commitment to equity. Sue is inspired by a female surrealist, Kay Sage, who, like not only female surrealists, but so many female artists, lived in the shadow of their male counterparts. And in Kay Sage's case, her husband, the Yves Tanguy, who was one of the leaders of the surrealist movement. And Sue really is helping to excavate Kay's legacy. So it's a proud moment for us to be able to have these two strong women, Sue and Cage, represented in this phenomenal work, curated by Lily Siegel and our all-female staff. It's a great empowerment moment for women. And we've now added an interactive piece to this too, the Buoyant Oracle. You can take your phone to the sculpture, and there's a Q code at the sculpture. You can scan your phone in the Q code and the sculpture will talk back to you. So that's a really cool interactive experience, especially in this time of COVID. Next slide. So why rebrand? Well, I think as you can see from those slides, the name really wasn't any longer adequately communicating to people who we were. It really speaks to, in many respects, a kind of local institution. And Grace has now become a much more regional, indeed nationally known institution. We also don't think it was telling people adequately that we're a contemporary art institution. And we felt that that was something that we really needed to own. Our audience has grown beyond Greater Reston. This will come as a great shock probably to many people on this call, but on our social media follows, the #1 social media audience for Tephra right now is DC. And yes, Reston is #2, but Manhattan and New York are #3. So it tells you how our reach has really evolved and grown over time. Finally, we really thought, that the name, because it was signaling this kind of local institution, might be limiting our fundraising appeal. And of course, the acronym had religious implications. So why now? Things were going along pretty great. We're doing all these great things. Well, this is something that our staff and board of directors and many people on this call have been a part of those conversations. They've been on our board now or previously. This has been a conversation that's actually been kicked around at Grace for a long period of time. We had the wherewithal, we think, to pursue that conversation now and the commitment from the board to do so. We're now in Fairfax County, an area with a population of 1.2 million people that, if that were a city, would be the 10th most populated city in the United States. So we think this area is ripe for a kind of breakout institution to be not only a leader for the visual arts here in the county, but writ large for the region. And of course, with the Reston Town Center Metro stop opening, again, hopefully early 2022, we think the timing here is just perfect. Everything around us is growing, expanding, and changing, and we have to grow and expand and change with it to continue to meet the demand. This was an extensive process. It was professionally led. We started our conversations internally back in the fall of 2018, and that led to us hiring Polywog, a naming agency based out of Minneapolis with 25 years of experience representing both private sector and public sector companies. We had hundreds of names, hundreds, literally thousands, that we kicked around with Polywog over the summer of 2019. Importantly, we ran a very open and transparent process that not only included our board and our staff, but all of you as the community were a part of that. We held multiple community forums, had over 100 people participate in those various forums to give us feedback about the ideas that we were kicking around. In the fall of 2019, we finally came around a name that we unanimously got the support from both staff and our board of directors, which was really important. That's a pretty hard thing to do. Our board is 27 people. Get unanimous support of 27 people, you probably got a pretty good indication you're on the right track. We hired legal counsel in 2019 to start the trademark search. We hired a new website developer that same season to start moving forward with our new website. We hired Ruth Abraham's Design in the summer of 2020 to work on the artwork and the logo. And then Amy Key's PR from downtown to help us work on the rollout, which we undertook in January of this year. So the challenge, I think, to everybody in the call by now should be pretty clear, right? Grace was an institution that already had very deep roots in this community. It's a beloved institution. So if you're even going to think about taking on the challenge of changing the name of such a beloved institution, you better make sure you hit some key benchmarks. And for us, it was making sure that we distinguish the organization as a contemporary visual arts leader. I talked earlier about we didn't think that the name Grace really signaled that adequately to people. We wanted to make sure that we had a word that was an actual word, that was unique, was trademarkable, but also that connected to our mission, which really limited our scope. There are a lot of institutions out there that have gone through this exercise and have come up with some pretty crazy names. I'm trying to think of a couple of them. Grizzly is one. It's a contemporary art institution peer of ours. But these are names that, while they shock, they don't really connect you easily to the mission. We wanted to be able to connect the name to our mission. We obviously had to have a name that would generate enough enthusiasm to justify replacing such a valued brand. I talked earlier about getting the unanimous support of our board and staff. And then finally, we had to get something that legally could be trademarked. So it was a deep challenge. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Janelle to give you the reveal, which of course, a lot of you by now have heard since January, but Janelle, take it from here.
Thank you, Robert, and I'm happy to be here tonight. Thank you for having us. And as we all know, Greater Reston Arts Center is now Tephra Institute of Contemporary Art, introducing our new era. So a little bit about the name and how it connects with our mission. Tephra essentially represents ash and rock particles that are ejected from volcanoes One of the greatest benefits of that ash and rock particle is that it actually nourishes the ground, producing fertile soil and crops, and in result changes the ecological landscape. So we see symmetry in the word tephra and how it relates to the combustibility of the creative process, how it has a shift in perspective or way of thinking, and how art ultimately has this regenerative power for new ideas and growth. And the phrase Institute of Contemporary Art is a category that's growing in currency that fits the organization's makeup, that you heard a lot about, kind of the intelligent portion of or aspect of our work and how it contributes to the art historical canon. Institute of Contemporary Arts are typically a non-collecting institution. And again, that intellectual component. And ICAs, as they're known, are unique in the immediate region, which further differentiates us from other organizations. About the logo and our brand identity, we see it to be aesthetically clean, minimal, and contemporary. The lowercase font style and choice speak to our core goal of being accessible. The angle or shifted element that you see to the left of Tephra, to us represents capturing mission-related themes of, again, combustibility, change, disruption. It can be viewed as an edge, a frame, an element, a window. And the green, the vibrant green, again, refers back to that regeneration, that growth, renewal, introducing new ideas and perspectives. And the added bonus is that it also ties into Reston's environmental stewardship. On this page, you'll see some of our brand materials. So this is examples of like what our exhibition booklets may look like. At the bottom of the screen, this is our toolbox of elements that also help to convey the branded identity outside of the logo. This refers back, or actually shows more specifically, the shifting of perspectives and ideas and viewpoints that we mentioned. And this is just an example of how you may see a shifted text to get that message across. So our story, we really see Tephra ICA as being a place for generation of ideas, experimentation, and meaningful dialogue. Broadening perspectives and encouraging growth are key focuses for us as an organization. Tephra Institute of Contemporary Art is a nonprofit, non-collecting institution committed to promoting innovative contemporary art and thinking. Leading with curiosity and care, we are a catalyst, generator, and advocate for visual and interdisciplinary arts. This portion of our history you all are familiar with, but I'll read through it because this is really important to us and will remain important to us. We proudly reside in Reston, Virginia, whose founder, Robert E. Simon, insisted that this be a place welcoming to all people and that it prioritize the arts as essential to a well-rounded life. Founded in 1974 as Grace by local artists and residents committed to those ideas, we commit to embracing that role and helping to fulfill and extend the Reston vision. So this is our mission and our history that is very prominent on our new website, tephrica.org. So what does the future hold for Tephra ICA? We're excited to share some of our upcoming exhibitions and programs. So this exhibition actually just opened last Saturday, so just a few days now it's been open. And it's titled Quantum Shift by light and space artist Gisela Colon. Gisela is a Puerto Rican artist currently living and working in Los Angeles, California. And this is her first solo exhibition of her work in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan region. It's a pretty big deal for us because Gisela is a big deal. Her artwork has been reviewed by not only the major art publications such as Art Forum and Hyperallergic, but Forbes and Architectural Digest and Los Angeles Times. It's a great opportunity to have her work in our region, so we're excited about it. And ultimately, her practice is rooted in a cross section of science and high art. Her works are known as pods and monoliths and ellipsoids. They're made from optical acrylics and carbon fiber. And essentially she sees them as being birthed from, or both from this earth and not of this earth. They're light activated sculptures that live on the wall and freestanding. And on this next slide, you'll see an example of some of the wall works that she refers to as pods and ellipsoids. What's really interesting about her work when you experience it in person is it changes from which viewpoint you're looking at. There's no light behind these sculptures. It sometimes looks like they're illuminated somehow, but that's all through just the natural environment that they're in. There's no paint color used in these works. It's all, they're created from the layering of these acrylic materials. So it is quite a surreal experience. And on this slide, I'll actually show a video, a behind the scenes video of a work that got added into the show just a few weeks before the work was supposed to be shipped to us. So this sculpture that you'll see in movement in just one moment was just poured and settled into itself. And Gisela took this video for us, which I will share with you now. And as you're watching this video, you can see the shift of form, color, and movement that really happens as you walk around the work. When you're looking at it straight on, it looks burgundy. When you come to the side, it looks teal and green. So there's this true transformative quality that's in her work, which represents what we both wanted to allow viewers to experience during this moment after such a challenging year. And the word, or the title, Quantum Shift, relates to the energy contained in the matter of the universe. Paired with the word shift references that physical change and movement or space together presenting a change in consciousness. So we are accepting gallery visits by appointment only. If you're open to viewing the exhibition in person, let us know. Other exciting exhibitions happening this year at our satellite gallery called Tephra ICA at Signature. Tephra ICA at Signature is located in the Signature apartment building in Reston Town Center. It's an innovative satellite gallery space that presents a year-round schedule of exhibitions. And Robert mentioned we feature some of the best local and regional artists as selected by Tephra ICA staff. It's provided in partnership with Boston Properties and Bozzuto, which we're very thankful for. And Amanda Alcott's show that you see here with the bear, the kind of whimsical bear playing with the balloons and pulling at the heartstrings, will actually end soon. So if you are in the area and want to, I think that the building may still be closed due to the pandemic, but we do have an online viewing room where you can check out her work. Next up is Judith Pratt, right above, and Judith Pratt's work is going to speak about the history of the region, particularly as it relates to slavery. So it's an interesting exploration compared to how the works actually aesthetically come across. And then Andrea Lamaro will be ending the year for us there, and his works also have a political tie a lot to the government and what's happening in social and cultural society. Emerging Visions is one of our most proud programs in our education portion of our organization. So Emerging Visions extends its mission beyond the gallery walls, creating opportunities for kindergarten through 12th grade students. We partner with Fairfax County Public Schools and invite students and educators to participate in this unique program, which offers enriching art content based on our exhibitions. So this is an example of a curriculum that Tephra ICA staff develops in partnership with FCPS students or teachers, excuse me. And this year, the program is centered on our More Drier exhibition that was presented in partnership with the Phillips Collection. Laurel Nakadante is another exhibition we're really looking forward to. It should be on view this fall. Laurel is internationally celebrated. She's a photographer, a filmmaker. She focuses on themes of sexuality and femininity, exploring voyeurism and interactions, often using herself as a subject. Laurel is another big deal. She's presents her work, or her work is in the collection of the Heron and of MoMA, PS1. And this will be presented in partnership with George Mason. So we're really excited about that collaboration. Northern Virginia Fine Arts Festival will also be happening in tandem with Laurel Nakadante's exhibition. This will be the 30th year, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Fine Arts Festival, but we showcase over 200 artists annually working in the fields of fine art and craft. The festival, with one-on-one experiences, performances, and special events, engages visitors with compelling artistic voices and attracts approximately 30,000 people to the open air environment of Reston Town Center. This program, or this event, will not change, still proudly presented by Tephra ICA, and we're excited to see how it evolves with the organization. And before I end the presentation, I wanted to share a video that was created by Studio Sonic, a design firm. This video was created in collaboration and in tandem with the launch of the Rebrand. And to us, it really captures the mission-related themes of Tephra ICA. So let's take a look. Again, we are so pleased to introduce you to our next chapter as Tephra Institute of Contemporary Art. Thank you.
Thank you. That was fantastic. So we'll open it up to questions now. Looks like, thank you, Erica, for answering. Looks like we had one question so far. And it looks like we had a question about what it was like involving Grace's membership in the transition with the rebranding.
Yeah, I'll start with that one anyways, Janelle, because a lot of that happened before Janelle came on board. It was great. As I mentioned earlier, we held, I think, plus or minus 10 forums that engaged our membership and the citizenry at large and giving us feedback about the ideas on the name change. What was really cool, it was a precursor, it was before COVID, that they were all live, except we actually did a virtual, the last one we did was virtual. We downloaded Zoom, we figured out Zoom, and we read our first Zoom call so that, if people hadn't been able to make it in person, they would still have an opportunity to participate and give us feedback. So that was pretty neat. Little did we know that we'd become so proficient in Zoom shortly thereafter, all of us trying to figure that out. But it was great. We had great community participation. We continue to get it. Tonight's another example of that, us continuing to reach out and try to engage the community in this. It's a big change, obviously. Of course, it's a change that is not going to be for everyone. What's been very gratifying is that I would say throughout the process leading up to the change, and now since the announcement, the rollout, We've certainly had many, many more people than not tell us how enthusiastic they are about the change and what we're doing, how fresh the messaging and the logo look. So we've been really gratified by that response. So thank you for that question. I hope that answered it.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody? Okay.
I might tag one just voluntarily. I'm sure, you know, a lot of people here, it's the Reston Historic Trust, and people are interested in Reston's history. So, you know, one of the questions we got throughout the process is, it's hard to see, you know, losing the name, losing Reston in the name. And what does that portend for maybe losing the institution? And what I've told people from day one, Janelle has reinforced this and she's come on board. She showed you the language that's on our website celebrating our living in Reston, where we are going to continue to live and reside. We were born here, we live here, we're staying here. Reston is in our DNA. In fact, one of the things we really embrace about this is that we think we can bring more people now to Reston to experience its message and its vision and its ethos, which included this profound commitment to arts as a part of the good life. So we're here for the long haul. We're not going anywhere. We really love our environment in Reston Town Center, which is, of course, one of the most dynamic spaces in all of Fairfax County. It's not only Reston's downtown, but increasingly the regions. So we think we're in just the right place. And with the Town Center Metro Station opening up, that will just add to the vibrancy and the dynamism of the experience. So we're happy in Reston. As I've told many people, we may have taken Reston out of the name, but we're not taking us out of Reston. That's a big difference. So I'm guessing that's probably on some people's minds, and I hope that proactively addressed that.
I think your willingness to collaborate on this program, I think, is a good example of that. So thank you.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for doing it. Thank you to the Reston Historic Trust. Thank you to all the great board of directors that you have, Carolyn, and everybody that serves with her. Thank you, Alexander. You've been a real pleasure to work with you and collaborate with on putting together this program. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me just see. It looks like, okay, no, not another question. Okay, great. Well, since we have no more questions, I just want to say a final thank you to everybody at Tephra for collaborating with us and sharing with us all the great work that you're doing today. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Of course, check out Tephra's new exhibit and their upcoming programs, and save the date for May 12th for the Reston Museum. That's going to be our next program. It's going to be on the Village Centers of Reston, so we'll have registration information for you soon. And Founders Day this year will be virtual. It's going to be April 10th. We'll be putting a great package together for everybody to enjoy on our YouTube channel. So keep an eye out for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you again, Alexander. And thank you to all the people who joined the call. Thank you for everything you've done over the years to support First Grace and now going forward, Tephra ICA. We're really grateful. You've helped build a national voice in the visual arts. So you should all be really proud of that. So thank you for being a part of that journey. Looking forward to the next chapters under Janelle's leadership. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks.